Big news, obviously, in Syria. So, as a rule, folks, when you see something like this happen, you know stuff is going down. Does this ring a bell? And when you see a statue of a Middle Eastern dictator coming down, you know things just got serious. Things just got real, right? That is a statue of Bashar al-Assad, brought down as regime's 53-year grip on power comes to an end. Syrian rebels topple President Assad. Prime Minister calls for free elections. Reuters had the reporting. Now, it's inevitable, folks, that as we do this, some of this is going to be a tad obsolete as things are moving very, very quickly. There's probably stuff breaking right now that we're not seeing, but we are doing the best we can here. Syrian rebels declared Bashar al-Assad's ouster after seizing control of Damascus on Sunday, ending his family's iron-fisted rule after more than 13 years of civil war in a seismic moment for the Middle East. The Islamist rebels also dealt a major blow to the influence of Russia and Iran in the region, key allies who propped up Assad during critical moments in the conflict. Iran's embassy was stormed by Syrian rebels following their capture of Damascus, Iran's English-language press TV reported on Sunday. Assad, who had crushed all forms of dissent, flew out of Damascus for an unknown destination earlier on Sunday, two senior army officers told Reuters, as rebels said they had entered the capital with no sign of army deployments. We celebrate with the Syrian people the news of freeing our prisoners and releasing their chains and announcing the end of the era of injustice in Sednaya prison, the rebels said, referring to a large jail on the outskirts of Damascus where the Syrian government detained thousands. The Syrian rebel coalition said on Sunday it is continuing to work to complete the transfer of power in Syria to a transitional governing body with full executive powers. The Great Syrian Revolution has moved from the stage of struggle to overthrow the Assad regime to the struggle to build a Syria together that befits the sacrifices of its people, it added in a statement. The collapse followed a shift in the balance of power in the Middle East after many leaders of Lebanon's Iranian-backed Hezbollah group, a linchpin of Assad's battlefield force, were killed by Israel over the past 2 months. Russia, Assad's other key ally, has been focused on the war in Ukraine. So it starts making even more sense now, does it not? Talk about 4D chess, right? Hotspot puts out this video here. Benjamin Netanyahu wastes no time celebrating the toppling of the Assad regime. Here he is from occupied Syrian territory, ready to go on location with this video. A historic day for the Middle East, he says.
Historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its suppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found.
Oh, sure it is.
Equally, we send a hand of peace
you guys are known
to
for
all
giving
those
back
beyond
land.
our border in Syria.
You're famous
to the Jews, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel and the border of Israel.
Well, boys and girls, you know what that means. Israel grabs land in Syria's Golan Heights, warns villagers to stay home. Boy, they wasted no time, did they? Israel has seized territory in Syrian-controlled areas of the Golan Heights as its military warned Syrians living in 5 villages close to the Israeli-occupied portion of the strategic area to, quote, stay home. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he ordered Israeli forces to grab a buffer zone in the Golan Heights established by a 1974 ceasefire agreement with Syria after a lightning advance by Syrian opposition forces ended Bashar al-Assad's rule. So Netanyahu mentioned that in the video. There was a separation of forces agreement in 74 that resolved the Yom Kippur War. But now that there's no government to enforce that ceasefire, Israel says, well, now that's not in action anymore.
Right.
That's no longer valid because there's no government there to enforce it. So in the meantime, as a temporary defensive posture, we're going to go ahead and, well, you'll see. I don't want to give any spoilers here, but not good. Believe me, not good. Netanyahu said on Sunday that the decades-old agreement had collapsed.
That's the problem with genocide. It's like potato chips. One is never enough.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Netanyahu said on Sunday that the decades-old agreement had collapsed and that Syrian soldiers had abandoned their positions, necessitating the Israeli takeover. We will not allow any hostile force to establish itself on our border, he said. Israel captured a portion of the Golan Heights in the 1967 war and annexed it. The international community, except for the United States, views it as illegally occupied Syrian territory. After Netanyahu's comments, the Israeli military issued an urgent warning to Syrians living in Ofanaya, Quneitra, and Al-Hamadiyah. These are hard. Samdanaya, Al-Garbaya, and Al-Qatanaya. Wow,
better you than me, brother.
That is a hard one. All close to the Israeli-occupied portion of the Golan Heights. See, if we had Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or something about somebody who knew what the fuck they were talking about doing this segment with us, they could have just rattled that off like nothing.
We should get Norm to start.
You guys are stuck slumming it with us. Sorry about that. Yeah, we should get Norm to do this. The fighting in your area is forcing the IDF to act, and we do not intend to harm you, Colonel Avichai Adrai, the Israeli Army's Arabic language spokesman, said on social media. Agricultural areas in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights were declared closed military zones, and some schools shifted to online classes in anticipation of unrest. Yeah, this sounds wonderful. Speaking from the Lebanese-Syrian border, Al Jazeera's Zain Basravi said that Israel was taking advantage of al-Assad's fall. What is happening is certainly to the benefit of the Israeli military, of the Israeli government, Basravi said. They are getting what they have said they have wanted all along, weaker neighbors so they can push their regional agenda. Yes, remember, greater Israel. Yep. Meanwhile, Israeli media said on Sunday that the Israeli Air Force has bombed weapons depots in southern Syria and Damascus to prevent opposition groups from seizing them. We attacked ammunition depots in southern Syria and in the Damascus airport area for fears they might fall into the hands of armed groups and local factions, the Israeli public broadcaster KAN quoted an unnamed Israeli security official as saying. Israel is working to thwart any potential threats and prevent any damage to its air superiority in Syria, the official added. Israeli daily Yedoath Athronoth said weapons depots and surface-to-surface missile stockpiles were the targets of Israeli attacks in Syria without providing further details. Speaking with Damascus's military intelligence and customs headquarters ablaze in the distance behind him, Al Jazeera Arabic's Adam Abu al-Hussam said that fuel depots in the compounds had likely been hit. Keep in mind, folks, this is all within hours of the Syrian regime falling. 2 regional security sources told the Reuters news agency that the security complex in Damascus's Kafr Susa district had been hit by Israel. So here it is, a tweet from Hamda Salhut. Damascus, Israeli airstrikes target the Syrian capital. It comes as the Israeli army had created what they call a buffer zone in the occupied Golan Heights. So as you can see, they have wasted absolutely no time getting on with the greater Israel projects, doing what They do best. Can't take that away from them. So Max Blumenthal says the Syrian state death by 1,000 imperialist cuts, soon to be ruled by 1,000 dictators. Sam Husseini, Syria is part of the payoff from the Ukraine provocation. U.S. bogs down Russia, so Syria is vulnerable. Israel as tip of spear of imperial project continues. Now, Caitlin Johnston expanded upon that a bit. Great take as always. Looks like Assad is on his way out. So this was before the Syrian government had formally fallen. Likely to be replaced by a U.S. puppet regime who will cut off supplies to Hezbollah in Lebanon. The empire notches another win. The U.S. proxy warfare in Lebanon and Ukraine makes a lot more strategic sense now. Many pundits on my end of the commentary spectrum have been calling those proxy wars self-defeating and framing them as the desperate flailings of a dying empire, which will only accelerate its demise. But now here we are watching the empire score a victory it's been chasing for years, with the Western Israeli stranglehold on the Middle East growing tighter than ever. One of the many perks of being the world's dominant superpower is that it gives you the luxury of time. If one regime change operation fails, don't worry, you can just move some chess pieces around and you can take another shot at it. This is kind of in line with what I said last time. When you're the empire, you can afford to fail. You can afford to waste time and money, right? If a coup attempt fails in Latin America, relax, there will be other coup attempts. If your efforts to grab...
We're like the world's trust fund, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, just fail without consequence. Eventually, you'll get lucky and succeed, and then you'll be a big winner. If your efforts to grab Syria fail, you can just smash it with sanctions and occupy its oil fields to impoverish it while overextending its military allies in proxy conflicts elsewhere and grab it later. I mean, how accurate is that? That's exactly what we did. A good kickboxer throws many combinations with the understanding that most strikes will miss or be blocked or cause minimal damage, trusting that eventually one knockout blow will get through. No empire lasts forever, but there's no evidence that this one is going away anytime in the immediate future. This ugliness could conceivably drag itself out for generations. Well, that is extremely well said.
Meme coins back on the menu, boys.
Yes. I mean, that is disturbing, but as usual from Caitlin Johnston, totally accurate and very, very smartly put. Now, Michael Tracy has the real question here, which determines how the Zionists are going to treat this. What is the position of the Syrian rebels on LGBTQ issues? Because we know they care so much about that, which is, of course, that's what's so amazing about this, is that you have the state of Israel, when it's convenient, they pound their chest, they stand up tall as the bastion of Western liberal values in a region of the world that so desperately needs them. Yet, as we'll find out in a later segment, this is sort of a multi-part story here, they aided the overthrow of the Assad government when they know damn well it's going to be replaced with the very Islamist savages, quote unquote, that they claim to be the bulwark against. It's all a matter of convenience. But yes, what Caitlin Johnston said, absolutely true. This is a win for the empire, and it's a win that makes the Ukraine quagmire look like less of a folly than we thought it may have been, because in the background, and this was the ball that I won't say we as a space took our eye off of, because there are people who are a lot smarter who've been following this a lot closer than we have, like Max and Aaron, who probably saw this kind of brewing all along. But generally, I think most of us in this space, broadly speaking, took our eye off the ball here and thought, well, this Ukraine thing is just suicide. Well, no, they were able to bog Russia down in Ukraine and get these rebels to take Syria, which they've been trying to get they've been trying to get it since 9/11, which we'll get to in a couple segments down, but they've been really trying to get it hard, for the last 13 years.
Right. I wouldn't overstate the consequences of it. I mean, certainly it's a win, but battles don't make the war. With each advance, there is a greater growing coordination amongst opposing powers who greatly outnumber us and have a great deal of resources on their own. China, as you talk about it being communist, we can debate that. They are much further along in coordinating finance with cloud computation and social media apps and entertainment than we are, than our own Amazon. Like they're much further along with in that than our Bezoses, our Elons, our Zuckerbergs. In other words, they are leading us in the technology that is clearly going to define the future. A big part of the tension that we're having with China is actually the way that their financialization of the internet is creating the potential to bypass the payment systems that are controlled by the United States, the way that you move money, in other words, from one country to another. Sanctioning Russia really made a lot of countries start to run to the Chinese system of payments. So, yes, this is a big victory for the empire, and it's kind of old school Kissinger real politics are going back further than that. This is very Game of Thrones. You bog down the opponent here, but your real objective is there. And sure, yeah, but it ain't over till the fat lady sings.
That is true. That is true. The concern, and this is kind of a segue into some of these future pieces that we have here as it pertains to this, is that, this is agitating for World War III. And once it blows up into that, at that point, it's no longer, real politic in the sense of like strategic maneuvering for, control of this region or that region. Now you're talking about the stakes getting much, much higher, much, much quicker. And so that is a caveat. But yes, I mean, I think what you're saying on its face is true.
And Israel is collapsing as a society.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you might have gained some ground here, but your businesses are collapsing, your people are fleeing, and your diplomatic ties to the rest of the world are on fire. So it's a Pyrrhic victory, isn't it? These victories are coming at the expense of their ability to maintain a cohesive society.
Please clap.